Hi, and welcome back. This is season 3. Very exciting. We've got 2 seasons in of the State of Healthcare podcast. This season, we're actually delving into what I consider the conditions nobody talks about. So if you haven't heard a lot of we never really researched or studied the female body, yes, we are definitely delving into that. That is a hot topic. Women's healthcare has been pushed aside for far, far too long. But we're not just going to touch on that. We haven't forgotten about the men in the world either. But we're going to be hitting topics that people like to steer away from. And I'm excited to hear that there's actually a lot more going on in these areas. But knowledge is power. So again, like in everything that we talk about, you need to fight for your healthcare. Knowledge is power. So you're going to hear about conditions and maybe things that you might have had symptoms on and you've been afraid to ask about. So that's what we're going to be exploring. So welcome to season 3. Yes, we have not really studied the female body, but we're going to be hearing about a bunch of things. So come along with us on this journey. Hi, and welcome back. Again, we are on the State of Healthcare podcast, and I have brought Gaby back because, she has so many good things to say, but also, your episode was our most popular episode so far. I'm going to say so far. Like, it's not that I'm trying to knock you off your pedestal of things, but Gaby was here talking about Chondromalacia patella, so about her knee problem that she had, and it was a really good episode. I love all my episodes with people, but I feel like you had a lot of really good points about exercise and things like that. And so what I was going to do is let you kind of update us on where you are with like your health journey.
Yeah. So I think we were talking about how long I had done the episode, maybe a year and a half ago.
Right.
It could always be better. It could always be worse.
Yes.
From a pain standpoint, I'm doing pretty darn good. So my knees have not really been in pain. Now it's kind of back to those really occasional, very occasional flare-ups if I really do the wrong things, which usually doesn't happen anymore. Back is doing a lot better. I think when we did the episode, I was still trying to figure out how to properly move for almost every single move.
Right.
It felt like, and I feel like finally I have tamed down the culprit.
Right.
And well, I did have another back problem.
Right.
Just keeps coming.
Life shifts, right?
Yeah, life shifts. And this time around, I think it definitely was related. Long story short, I feel like I was doing something one day and it kind of like pulled on my lower back, but it was the other side. So I'm like, maybe it's just that unevenness. And I obviously was more aware of it. I was like, okay, maybe I should just do the things and take a step back. I wasn't really working out then because I still am fine, honestly, my flow for workout.
Right.
I have more motivation than I did before, but I still am trying to find the flow that I once had. And that is still a little bit of a struggle because I'm trying to find the motivation with the new me, with the new workouts, with still cleaning up form for simple things.
Right.
So, and obviously it hasn't helped that lower back issue, which to be specific, it was my SI joint.
Right.
Started becoming a problem and it has kind of been bugging me for the last several months. So I feel like I have not fully caught a break from injuries since our episode, unfortunately. But I will say that it has become an easier path in dealing with it, in knowing what to do, what not to do. Although even when you're when you have previous experience with injuries, but it's a new area, I still feel like there's obviously growth and learning and trying to find the triggers and not getting stuck in doing the wrong things that think are helping, but they're not fully helping. And I don't know if we want to get into that later, but so all in all, life is good. Life is busy. I'm not in pain for the most part. And if it is, it's just like a soreness that I can usually alleviate for the most part. But I'm hoping I'm on the mend, and I'm hoping that the next time we do an episode,
you'll be like, I'm good.
I'm like doing a bodybuilding competition. Right.
Yes, definitely. We'll do. And I think that's it. Like I always compare it, like people are kind of like onion layers, right? So you hurt something,
And I'm always trying to pull back to be like, well, what happened? Because sometimes it's like you feel like you're in that leaky boat where you patch something.
Yes.
And then another hole springs up and you patch something and another hole springs up.
Totally.
But these things may have been part of it, or subsequent to like a knee injury, you made changes with the way these other things are. And as you're learning how to properly engage the stuff you need to, then in the meantime, your back's like, oh, but I've been working so hard. So we're kind of like following the chain back.
I also see it as a little bit of a Jenga. Because back in the day, I do remember when I was doing, like I'm still at this point younger, like a young adult, and you can do no wrong, your body's great. And I do remember having like, soreness on that SI joint, like bilaterally on both sides. And I was like, oh, it's just, I did too much. And I did too much at the time. However, now coming back here, I think there was this relation where maybe your body being younger was like, hey, I don't really feel that great, or maybe we are weak here. And you just kind of ignore it because you're like, I did too much. It's not a big deal. It'll be fine. Yes. And now I'm like, oh, well, I can't say that for sure. Back in the past, I would have done the things because this obviously, I got here because of injuries. But I think it was related. And now I'm like, oh, okay, well, so I think it was like you said, a Jenga where it's like, it's fine. And then you start adding more pieces and you get an injury. And then it finally gets to a point where you crumble.
Right.
And that's where I was, where I'm just kind of rebuilding and refilling those Jenga spots.
I like that analogy on things because I think you start out, right, with your tower. And then you overtrain, right? And you ignore your back saying something. And then you don't stretch or you don't warm up and you pull out some more Jenga pieces, right? And then you are like, oh, I'm going to just strength build and I'm just doing all this stuff. And maybe you don't have someone check your form. So you keep pulling Jenga pieces out. And your body's like, no, I'm not happy about this. No, I'm not happy about this.
I can't hold on anymore.
And then all of a sudden you crumble and then you're like, shit, like did this just, and it feels like it came out of nowhere.
Yes.
But you basically had a lifetime of your body being like, hello. Yeah,
training poorly,
not warming up, not cooling down, not listening to it.
And even just training poorly with normal activities of daily living where you're like, oh, that's how I load my dishwasher, that's how I do. So you just get used to that,
right?
And then in combination with everything else, I mean, it's just bound to crumble.
Well, and I even had a patient, it was funny, she was, we'd worked hard on the shoulder, it was finally and she went out into the backyard to just pull bricks, right? And she's like, really, though, like just the simple, and I was like, well, you did this whole like reach out and jank thing. And she's like, would you lecture me about this or everybody? And I'm like, everybody. I don't give it, like, I'm trying to prevent injury. So I don't want you going out and janking the bricks poorly. I want you to have good habits. So when you go out to pull it, you're going to know exactly what you need to do.
Exactly.
So that you're safe. I was like, yeah, today's a little extra special lecture for you because you hurt yourself.
Right.
But then I was like, that also then translated to a talk about how does she pick up toys for her kid? How does, you know what I mean? So it's life things, right? I mean, I was in the Walgreens and I saw the lady like trying to get the waters and she's reaching around the like metal detectors to pick up the case of water. And I'm like, do I correct her?
Right.
Do I just give her a card because she's going to need help later? Like, or do I just, it was one of those moments where I'm like, oh gosh. And you just, you know, and it's hard because we can't do everything perfect all the time.
No.
We're still human beings. Even getting your exercises in, like you actually do them like 3 or 4 times a week. And I know you're probably like, oh, I want to, I'm excited by that. So I feel like that's probably also why you've been doing so well is you're still getting them in, even if you don't get to do every single exercise. But I think we talked a little bit earlier, like even if you just do like 5 quality reps.
Yes.
Which is something that people, I think, don't always think they have to do 50.
Correct.
So I've been really proud of like all the work you've been doing, even though in your head you're like, I should be doing this more times. I think that's probably why things have been maybe moving in that right direction.
Yeah. And I did want to specifically talk about the reps, but I 2 things I didn't want to forget to mention. And we can maybe wrap this at the end, but it's like now I view it going back to the Jenga situation where you have to pick up those pieces and be like, good form, work on good posture, work on,
Mhm.
and building Jengas when
Mhm.
it's that tall of a tower, it
Right.
takes time. And
Mhm.
that's, I feel like, no, understanding how your body does take several months to
Mhm.
get inflammation down, to get kind of situated, and then to start learning new habits into building that tower. It's not
Mhm.
going to be an overnight, just like, Rome wasn't built in a day,
Okay.
right?
No, and that is the thing. I think so many people get frustrated with the rehab process.
Mhm.
Like, this will be like a couple weeks, right?
Right.
Why don't I not feel better? When can I go back to blah? And I'm like, I want to support you in that journey, but I'm trying to clean up habits. I'm trying to repair damage.
Yeah, it's
And
not just reducing the inflammation and
right.
you're good. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, what are you going to do after that now
Yeah.
that you are
Mm-hmm.
injured, post-injury,
Well,
to
and
change it?
that's also why I think I see people come back a lot for like, or they're just like, oh yeah, I've had the shoulder thing for years. It just has these flares. And in my head, I'm like, let's clean this up. Like,
Yes.
let's stop having, and again, like with an injury, there's always a little bit of that area being your weaker spot. So then, like, even with the knees, like
Mhm.
if you were to do something funky, it's probably going to go to one of the spots in you that's weaker. Like for me,
Right.
if something happens, my neck is what's going to probably be
Mhm.
like, meh. But I don't want someone to not be able to train things, but I'm like, let's train them properly. Let's clean up this stuff that you were doing that got you here in the first place so you can do things.
Yeah, and I think there's still poor understanding of that. When you, at
Mhm.
least for me personally, I feel like I was all into the workout, get in
Mhm.
shape, get ripped, lose weight,
Mhm.
and you're not thinking of, like, truly the end goal is to be able to do all those things
Mhm.
safely,
Right.
taking care of your body and making
Mhm.
sure that you don't end up going into the injury route.
Right.
So I feel like a lot of the focus is more on like the quick
Uh-huh.
get there, let's build muscle,
Mhm.
rather than like, okay, if I keep doing this, hopefully right,
Right.
then I'm still gonna have a functional body and still be in
Mhm.
shape and still, but training requires knowledge
Mhm.
and proper form if you want to keep doing this for the rest of your life the
Mhm.
right way.
Right. Because again, I'm excited when people want to work out and they want to do things, right? Sometimes half the battle is getting people to
To
engage,
do it right.
but then there's so much the other way. And then people get frustrated because they're like, well, I guess I just can't do this exercise because whatever. And I'm like, you can properly.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of,
Mhm.
building up, right? So going
Mhm.
back a little bit to what you were saying about having the discussion of doing things with proper form.
Mhm.
I finally understand the meaning
Mhm.
and the importance of simple exercises
Mhm.
being extremely powerful.
Right.
So I think I mentioned that, back in the day, had I
Mhm.
done a bird dog, I'd
Right.
be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's for the back. Maybe that's
Mhm.
just to stretch, that's just to move the body.
Uh-huh.
And when I actually learned during my injury process to do a proper bird dog,
Uh-huh.
knowing where to put the focus on, it was really freaking hard. I
Uh-huh.
was like, am I doing it right? Because you have to engage your core. You have to make sure that your hips are leveled. You have to make sure you're squared and
Mhm.
that your leg is not
Mhm.
too overextended. I mean, it's a lot of things. And
Right.
of course, when you're not thinking about proper form, you're like just swinging.
Swing. You're like on your hands and knees. Bird dog again, hands and knees. You're just
Yeah.
extending an arm and a leg,
Yeah.
generally opposite. And if you walk by a lot of things, you'll just see people like swinging it around and their back arching and hips are shooting out to the side and things are dipping. And I'm always like, oh gosh.
Yeah. No, it's hard to see. And now
Mhm.
that, coming back from an SI joint
Mhm.
injury, that I'm trying to stabilize my hips so they're
Right.
not moving and who knows what else they're doing in the
Mhm.
wrong direction or way. Um, just understanding where that strength is coming from
Mhm.
really changed my biology of understanding how some of these exercises, just like,
Mhm.
you think core, you're like, yeah, sure, abs. Okay, great. I want to have great abs. I'll
Right.
do a couple of like
Little
ab
crunchy sit
workout.
up
Yeah,
things.
little crunches
Mhm.
here and there. And now that I don't use my back
Uh-huh.
constantly for things, now my core is engaging all the time without me thinking about it, which I'm like
Mhm.
super happy about. But simple as that,
Mhm.
yet is like the basis of having good form day to day without even working out. Like this, I'm not even talking about exercises. I'm talking about when I pick something up or if I'm like reaching on the countertop to grab the kids' dishes.
Right.
I'm not using my back anymore. I'm using my core, and I don't have the same back problems that I used to. So understanding that and also recognizing how long it took me to understand that makes me a little frustrated. But for the people that are just starting, that are young, it's like, don't wait to get an injury to understand these basic exercises and concepts.
I always tell people, like, as I would rather they learn early, right? In an ideal world, I take someone, we go over proper form, like see a physical therapist for prevention, right?
Yes.
Like, here's my training goals, here's what I want to work on this amazing form, and then we get you to this. The world is usually, I'm going to see you one either now or later. Like, I would better see you now.
Yeah.
And then we touch base and do whatever. Most likely it's going to be later when you can't move or you've done something, you have an injury. Now this is going to be something that will impact you the rest of your life.
Yeah. So now it's going to be more work.
Yes.
And retracting your steps into learning how to do the right thing. So,
and it's always that kind of random thing where people are like, oh, I don't want to learn this, or I don't want to stabilize this, or I just want to do a bunch of these things. But I don't think people understand the injury. It was interesting. I gave like a talk thing on like the importance of pausing or whatever. And I was, you know, and that was more like for fall prevention. But it was also like one of those things, either you pause and you do it correctly, or you will definitely be pausing because you'll be rehabbing an injury.
Also, I think that sometimes words like stabilizing don't have, like, people don't know what that means.
Right.
What does stabilizing mean? What does
engage your
core
core
mean? Yeah. So when you don't know that, you're like, okay, like, it's just like stretching, right? You see it as like, we talked about this on my first episode where stretching, you're like, yeah, sure, you just stretch. And now that I'm gonna be 40 this year,
right,
I'm like, when I stretch, I'm like, oh, that's what stretching is for. Like, I completely feel the difference of why stretching is crucial. Before you do even simple exercises, you might not feel it when you're 20 or 25, but it's just imperative.
Well, I mean, we were talking about like the importance of building these habits now, right? Like warm-ups, like why those are important, or like building proper dietary habits, building proper, like, so when you're 20 or you're like, oh, most people can probably jog in, do an exercise class or whatever, and then peace out. No warm up, no cool down, then they're fine. Kind of.
Yeah, right.
Possibly. I mean, you're starting to then pull a piece of the Jenga thing out, right? But if you start to build in even like a good warm up, I'm happy again if people do like their 5-minute warm up, because it's something is better than nothing. A good proper warm up addressing all of those things is about 15 to 20 minutes.
Exactly.
So if you start building that habit now, like, it will then, as you get older, then you'll be ready and your body's already like been like, it's cool, we do this, versus now you're 40 and you're like, oh shit, I have to learn how to warm up my body.
100%. And I feel like for me too, it was ignorance and ego. I'm like, I don't need to warm up. I can do 10 to 30 burpees, you know, and you're just kind of like, I feel like I viewed warm up as like a weakness or I don't need a warm up.
Right.
If only I had what I know several years ago, life would have been a lot easier. But I do think, and I also, not sure if we're going to talk about this earlier or later, but I think that whatever story I'm providing and facts to you guys for my experience, I feel like a lot of those really can fall onto really any injury category.
Right. It doesn't just have to be a knee injury.
Right, because we talk about the psychological part of it, the emotional part of it, the loss part of it, you know, all of the things that come with having an injury, whether it's in your arm, leg, wherever, and just how to navigate at that moment where you're at and where you would want to be in 20 years. And I feel like for me, I'm no longer in that like lost stage where it's like, I can't do these things. In fact, that kind of dissipated.
Okay.
I think I'm more in the, okay, like, let's focus on like how I can continue maintaining, sustaining, and rebuilding function
Right.
for when I'm older.
Uh-huh.
So if anything, I'm still grasping to that. Like I'm happy with it. I'm fine where I'm at.
Right.
I no longer have that like go getter, like the more is better, the harder is better.
Uh-huh.
I still would like to find more motivation. I think this is part of just the ebb and flow of life and aging.
Right. Well, and I think that thing with aging is we want to keep mobile, right? You want to be safe and mobile. And it's interesting because I do have older clients, and as I'm working with some of them, I worked with one the other day, and he's like, but when I was younger, I could do this like for 45 minutes and I could do this and that. And, and I'm not saying you can't, but I was like, well, I'm cleaning up form with you now that should have been done many years ago. So this is why you've had to have a spine surgery. This is why, he's doing fabulous. He can do 30 minutes on the Peloton and like works out with a trainer like a couple times a week and then sees me a couple times a week. So he's doing fabulous in his 70s, right? He's doing great. I was always in my head, I'm like, if you had learned these proper stretching techniques and how to, because now we're learning how to use his glutes and his abs, right? And I'm like, if he had not had to have a spine surgery, imagine how much like further along he'd be. He's sad that he can't do 45 minutes to an hour on the Peloton, but I'm like, in my head, I'm like, you're doing fabulous. You could have been so much farther if someone would have taught you this proper form, because I'm cleaning up all these things.
Right.
In your 70s, which is still great, but like he could have probably avoided a back surgery. And I'm like, oh,
it's hard to swallow when you know it could have potentially been prevented by awareness and early intervention. Which is why I'm definitely more aware of that with my kids. I feel like they're finally getting to an age where I can explain and I can demonstrate and I can, discuss and we can practice. But again, like lifting boxes, how do you grab your backpack, or just the like really anything on how your body moves, how that is important. And now that they're being more physical in classes, learning how to do a proper squat, a proper sit up, a proper push up. I mean, those are, again, things that if you think about it, it's one move, but that move requires so many muscles, so many places to have strength, to not have strength, to have focus. And that's a hard movement. So people that just do the sit-ups or the push-ups just to do them, that's how they start learning how to do them.
Right.
And they never understand like the rhyme or reason or mechanism. Exactly.
Well, I grew up in the President's Fitness things where we had to do them as fast as possible, and you found out all these reps, and then we were the cool kids who carried our backpack on one side. And you would start to see kids' skeletons shifting because that's when you're growing, and then you'd have these like skeletal shifts. So I remember as I was starting to go through PT stuff, we had flyers and ways to educate, like maybe be a nerd and put your backpack on both sides, just things like that, or shift it around, or just these things that like you don't think about, and then you go and it's nothing against the school systems. Have their own gazillion issues and they're overloaded, or these programs, they're just like, they don't spend the time educating the kids on like how to do the form, right?
Totally.
They're just pounding it out. Even in classes, like you're trying, and just getting kids active is again probably a big thing with like the world of like people either being too active or not active enough. So I'm happy they're moving, but that's when you're learning these like form things, right? You're getting it in your head, and then you're going to carry that into life
100%.
And then you're gonna be like, but that's what I've always done. Or you don't know why, like you dead bugs and bird dogs. And it's so funny because people think these little exercises, like you were saying, but they should be hard if you're doing them right. And then once you've nailed that amazing form, let's play and make it harder or make it more challenging. But if you there's some people who come in with amazing, like they've had the background and okay, then we can, but I usually have to spend a lot of my time cleaning up the basics because the foundation of the house is not where it should be.
Right. Well, and even, as adults where you think you're like, oh, that's not a big deal. Like how you carry your purse, how to, like you said, how you grab the water from the aisle, all those things that I didn't think about before. And then I'd be like, why did my back start hurting? All of a sudden I didn't work out. And it's, you're looking at the wrong things, and you're not even aware of how to use your body in just, again, day-to-day basic mindless stuff.
Well, I guess I should ask you then. Why do you think your episode was so popular? I mean, you could be like, wow.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that the way I explain things
Mm-hmm.
in my own way, I think people can relate
Mm-hmm.
to uh, at least one thing out of what I said,
Mm-hmm.
right? Again, talking about the psychological part, the
Mm-hmm.
physical part, the loss part, the just all of it that encompasses going through an injury and feeling it and accepting it. And so I feel like there was a psychological part that people can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
As well as like people that maybe were like hardcore workout people like I was, that I am no longer like that. So like maybe have like the audience that as well that was kind of interested in that, but also in a way normalizing what really people go through an injury. And you might not know what you're gonna be going through, and you know, everybody has their own journey, everybody has their own perspective. But I feel like wherever you're at, I think you can relate to something that I went through and I'm still going through.
Right.
And also kind of again making it it's not just an injury and you're good. It's kind of like a forever thing, you know, like
Right.
you might be good, but are you still keeping your form clear for workouts or life in general? And also how are you going about mentally and psychologically through that ebb and flow?
Right. Well, and I think that's it. Like, yes, where your episode label is like knee pain, and people are probably like, oh, Chondromalacia patella.
I don't have that.
Right. Like, oh, but at the same time, what for you was something that started as like, oh, it's knee pain, that was kind of actually like you verbalize how it changed your life.
Totally.
And what you had to like go through with that and be like, oh. And again, would it not be better had like years ago you learned all these things so you didn't have to go on this journey? You know, I feel like for my neck too, I wish on some level I didn't have car accidents or things hadn't happened or I hadn't done something dumb and whatever. But sometimes again, you have to embrace like, well, this is what I'm at and this is what I've learned and this is how I'll use it to like for your kids, for me helping patients, or you know, also for helping you have a healthier life now.
Totally. And I said this on the first episode, and I'm still a firm believer that where and how my personality was and my goals, something had to stop me, and it was going to be an injury. Like there was just no ins, ands, or buts. That's the only reason why I stopped doing the things I was going to do, and probably maybe never even consider form and all of those things. So I think it was just kind of unfortunately meant to be.
Right.
And I'm grateful I did learn all the things. Like I said, I'm like, oh, I'm so sad I can't do like HIIT classes and all that, because I feel like I just kind of accepted it and moved on. And now I'm more like, I do want to preserve as much as possible my cartilage and my function. And like you said, it started with that. And it really just made me understand the whole picture. And also for future injuries, how I view those. So like now that I've gone through some, I'm like, oh, okay, well, this doesn't feel right. I'm going to look into some things. You know, you just start making different choices and you start kind of planning and being more aware of an event or an injury before it even gets to that point. So I'm grateful for that too, because that did teach me that.
Well, and in some ways when you were talking about the Jenga and you and now even as you mentioned, like, oh, when I was younger, I did occasionally feel things. And before I forget, like sacral iliac joint, your pelvis, and then you have like your pelvic bones, and then there's your tailbone in the middle. That's kind of where they join. So like if you I have some random videos on things if you guys want to watch, but it's kind of that, especially for women, it shifts more than we realize. Especially for women when you have babies, that's like there's a shifting of those joints basically, like, or they rotate or do like that torsion. So it's kind of like if you're like, oh, it's my lower back, it's actually probably into that sacroiliac joint. And so if you'd had previous times where you're like, oh, I feel like a little bit here, there probably was a setup. And so maybe as in my head, I'm again, as we're clearing things, we're peeling back the layers of like, okay, well then this is what got used here. So let's clean that. So let's clean that. So we're slowly peeling back the layers of all the stuff that got stacked. And when it crumbled, now we're like building it and we're like, okay, well, what's happening here? What's happening here?
Right. And I think too, going through this, now I'm just more aware of like, if I'm doing something poorly, I immediately try to tweak it or change it. I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna have back pain because I cleaned my bathroom. Like before, it's like it's just the nature of it. You just cleaned all day, so you must be sore.
Right.
And there's a good sore and then there's a bad sore. So you start recognizing those things before they're even happening. And now when I make different choices. If I'm doing something, I'm like, you know what? I overdid it at work, or I was whatever the reason might be. I don't push myself to that point of I'll be fine, just a little soreness, no problem.
Push through this.
Yeah. So I just basically are my own stopping point. And
which you wouldn't have been prior, right?
Correct.
You would have pushed through. And so those moments when it's those things we don't think about, right? We're like, but I have to get this done. Sometimes, but can you break it up a little bit? Do you have to when your body's telling you, and it's telling you either you listen now and you adjust, or you're going to suffer. So do you want to be down for 2 weeks because you flared your back up cleaning the bathroom? Or do you want to take a 30-minute break, or come back though tomorrow, and it takes 2 days to clean the bathroom, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can move again and still do your exercises. So I feel like it's one of those things where that's our mentality so much in life, because I'm just going to power through. I'm going to do this. It has to be done here. And your body's like, well, guess what? You're taking a 2-week break.
Yeah,
anyway.
Exactly. And it's that I can do it. It's, sometimes I feel like that mind still tries to race. And I think that is also very related to, again, aging, right? Because you're like, oh, okay, I know I'm a little older, but I still am young and I can do all these things. And I feel like, again, people that might not have back or knee pain, but that might be older, can relate to something that I'm saying, where maybe when they were my age, they were not paying attention to now the importance of stretching or stabilizing joints and that kind of thing. And I'm hoping that anybody that listens to the episode can take one good thing out of it and apply it to their life, because I wish I had. But
no, and I appreciate you coming back to revisit. I know we talked a little bit about repetitions earlier, speaking of life lessons. So
yes.
I was going to let you kind of make your point on repetitions, something that you wish you'd have learned, because we were talking about those little exercises that seem so simple, or why am I doing this and only doing a few reps? People always poo poo, because we want to do the most intense thing, right? I want to do the cool skill. But I know we had kind of I was gonna let you go off on that for a minute, but
yeah, I mean, I even notice it these days where it's I go back to exercises I was doing before, and I was doing 30 to 40, and I'm like, that was easy. I need something harder, right? So you're always looking for that feeling of wow, that was really hard. I almost died.
Right.
At least I was. And then when I do, now mind you, I am not obviously at the same stamina I used to be back several years ago. So of course my muscles get tired quicker, and I feel weaker in some areas. But even doing bird dogs or just even sometimes simpler yoga positions, now that I know where the focus and the weight and the strength needs to be at for some of those exercises and positions, doing 5 of them kicks my butt. And especially when you do them slowly, and especially when you do them controlled. And that's something that if and when I go back to working out full time, I that will never change. Not only it's harder,
right,
but also very much safer compared to just yanking in and hustling.
Well, and that's a little bit and I appreciate, I'm here, make this point for me, but that I'm trying to tell patients, because they're like, am I supposed to get 10 done here? And I'm like, our goal is 10, but I would rather 5 quality, right? Your body, if you yank your leg around 10 times, you got movement, but you then learned a bad form, right? You possibly pulled something else in the process. So, here's where we are. So I would rather 5 quality, slow and controlled things that can be intense, right? If you're doing it with good form, you should feel it. And again, the pausing, right? So I always tell people, you can actually get more out of the exercises by moving slowly, adding that control, versus you walk through the gym and everyone's like,
yeah.
And I'm like, there are fast twitch muscles and you need different things, but at the same time, I'm like, well, I'll probably see that person at some point because they just powered it out and they didn't actually learn, their body didn't get to learn the motor pattern and like this whole thing. So it's just always kind of the opposite of like what we're ingrained whenever we watch an athletic thing or you go to a class and everyone's always like, faster, lift heavier weights, move quicker, you need to go faster. And I'm like, I'm gonna do me, like
100%.
because I don't want to get hurt.
Well, and again, how does faster equal stronger or safer or better? And that's, like you said, it is ingrained. It's like I used to be a competitive dancer when I was younger, and not that you do things fast, but you're ingrained to tolerate the load, the cognitive load, the hard load. You're like, I can do it all. I can do as 20 more than you can. And it's just this like, and again, that was also very true for my personality. When you're very competitive, you're looking for adding to the pile. How much can you do? And to, whether it's to show off or to show off to yourself, like, see, I did it. Again, completely wrong mentality and psychology. But now I even mentioned it. We were doing chaturanga, which I hadn't done in years because of my arm. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it. And of course, there was this like, oh, am I doing it right? Kind of that like pre-fear of like, this is a new exercise that I used to do before with no problem. Now I'm not feeling like that. And I feel like that's also very relatable. When you go through an injury and you stop doing the harder exercises and you start training to get to that point, when you start doing it, it just feels abnormal. It feels unnatural.
Well, and you do have that fear reaction because you also remember being hurt. Like,
correct.
This used to hurt when I did it. Sometimes there's an anticipatory pain that people get. And I'm like, or they're like, this is going to hurt. And I'm like, let's work through it together.
Yes. So there's that psychological component where you're like, am I okay? Is my body okay? Is my mind going to be okay?
Right.
So, but after I did it, I noticed that I was a little fatigued from other exercises we did. Before I would have been like 20,
right?
And now I'm like, you know what? I did work out. Let's try 3 and just build up from there.
Right. And that's perfect because you're introducing it. You're starting to teach yourself that from a psychological perspective, you're okay. Right. The biggest thing I hear from people from an injury perspective, aside from people that don't warm up, is I'm just going to do it one more time, or I'm going to do a couple more reps. And I'm like, your body's tired, dude. Like,
and we talked about in the last episode of doing like the last one where it's like,
that's when it's like, nope. And that's usually when people get hurt, unfortunately, because they're tired and they're like, I'm just going to do it again. Right. And I always want people in on a good note, right? Like, oh, this was a good exercise. But if I had been like, no, we're going to do it again, because like, I think you need it. We could have possibly pushed you into it, like re-flaring up that arm. We could have done, something else. You could have then used your back as that compensation because you're like, oh, she wants me to do it, right?
Yeah.
Or I've got this coach staring at me who wants me to do this. Honoring what your body is telling you, because it's telling you either listen now or you're going to spend the next so many weeks listening to me.
Right. Well, and something that just popped in my head too, it's like looking back and now seeing all these people like bodybuilders, which is,
amazing.
It's an amazing sport. But I don't know, it just kind of feels so natural now. It's like when you go through injuries, for me, I'm like, I see people like carrying that much weight and like doing really deep squats with a lot of weight and things that kind of make me cringe. I'm like, the body shouldn't be sustaining that much weight, that much pressure, that much stress. And I feel like, again, there has to be a point where it's like, you need to separate and be realistic with, this doesn't make me weaker. This doesn't make me not good enough, not athletic enough, not whatever enough. And you just kind of need to take a step back and prioritize. Right. Do I want my body to be in the best shape possible, but also be safer? Or do I take the risk? And obviously, with my journey, no risk is worth it. But also, I feel like for people to understand that fully to that extent, they have to injure themselves to be like, oh, this is the pain, or this is what I feel like. And sometimes that's just kind of the wall.
Well, and I think the hardest part for me is I see the person who's like permanently got this stuff that they're gonna have to deal with, right? And they're like, but I got the one thing in like high school, or they push themselves so hard, and maybe the glory of that moment was worth it. Like maybe they'll carry that, and that's perfect. Like if you're okay with that.
Right.
Okay, my job is to like, let's make you as functional as possible for the rest of your life. But I also feel there's like good, safe training ways to still achieve and like progress with what you're doing where you're not like, now I'm permanently disabled because of blah, right? Like if at 18 you peaked because you tore all this shit, like you have a long road ahead of you.
Right.
And it's doable. You can figure things out. You know, again, I learned many things going through rehab stuff from my injuries, but like it always makes me sad when I see that, when I'm seeing you at 40 something because you're just like ever since then you couldn't use that one leg right, or you couldn't do this. And there are some like extenuating circumstances. Sometimes life just deals crap to people. But I just you know, that's what makes me sad. I was like, was that moment worth this for you? I mean, and again, maybe the answer is yes. And if it is yes, then okay, well, let's work with what you have and try to make you as functional as possible.
I think looking back to some of a lot of the times when I was doing exercises, in my head, I was like, I want to work it all out all the time, right? So I'm going to work triceps, biceps, core, legs, you know, and obviously not even with the right exercises, obviously, but in my head, I was like, oh yeah, like that's a full workout because I get to do everything all the time. And I didn't even understand, obviously at that time, what I understand now, that like certain exercises are meant to strengthen certain parts. And when you do them right, you can strengthen those parts. So other parts are better and okay and more stable. And that was also obviously, again, like I just had so many erroneous information that just did not make sense. It made sense to me at the time. I'm like, yeah, no, the more the better. And all the stuff we talked about, but it really wasn't true. It was these false beliefs that I thought would take me to get in. And I did get in amazing shape at some point in time with
setting yourself up for things. Yeah, for
to get here.
Yeah. So I mean, you're like, you probably felt great and you're doing all this stuff. And it is hard to like take someone who's super athletic and be like, let's learn these little like baby exercises, right?
Yeah.
You know, I even had someone come in, like this guy had come in and he was, you know, I was filling in somewhere and he would start yelling at me because he's like, you know, he wants to do weight training and he does manual physical labor. And he's like, I do all my exercises and everything still hurts. And he's yelling at me. And I'm like, let's see if you can engage your core. Could not, right? And so we spent the next 10 to 15 minutes because I was like, I thought maybe he wasn't understanding my instructions. He couldn't do it. And I was like, oh, I'm like, everything you're doing is harming your back.
Yeah. It's like the pillar is gone.
Because the one thing you need to be able to use first isn't working. So you're thinking I'm doing all these amazing exercises and all you're doing is hurting yourself more and more. Everything you do, every manual labor thing that he did, like wearing the tool belt and the stuff outside, I was like, everything you're doing is just harming yourself.
Well, and something I just also thought about that we had kind of talked a little bit about, and even in the first episode, where so my mom, who also does a lot of functional, good quality movement, Pilates, dancing, training, she's also learned, you know, obviously what per perform looks like and how to engage it. Now she does it more in like a dancing type of environment, but it's crazy how even with her experience on how she sees some of these teachers that are supposed to have like all these qualifications and experience, and she's baffled by how some of these dancers get trained to do the core exercises, some of the things that are not even using the proper mechanism or muscles. So this is connected to how, for, you know, there's so many gyms out there and so many Pilates places out there and yoga and whatever it might be. And, you know, I personally, I said this earlier in the first episode, where I just kind of lost trust on like some of the professionals that do know supposedly how to train and they don't, and then they start teaching you things that you think you're doing right, but you're not. And you just start carrying that obviously with your workouts. So obviously that's kind of a hard topic because there's like so much out there, right?
And again, like, you know, it's hard because you can't be like this we all make mistakes, right? Like I'm still as a therapist learning. So I'm still trying to like be the best therapist that I can by continuing education, by going to things, by observing other practitioners, by so I feel like I'm always learning every day. But it is also interesting. And again, from a healthcare perspective, even from the therapy, right? A lot of times the hard part is that there's so many patients. So if you're in a traditional outpatient clinic where you're not in a one-on-one setting with a practitioner, you're probably sent into the corner and told to like do these exercises. And someone can't, maybe a tech can check in on you occasionally, but they don't get to watch you or correct you.
Right.
So you're just doing the best you can, right? And so it is probably hard. Or, depending on the level of whatever you're working with. Again, it's not a picking on of the things. It's just sometimes that's why, again, my mantra for patients is fighting for your healthcare. So if you're going somewhere where you're not feeling like you're being observed or someone isn't making sure your form is correct, maybe that's when you reevaluate and you seek out other resources.
When that's even for just as simple as like the gym classes, right? Where it's like, okay, we're going to do 4 of these, or like the HIIT classes where it's like, you have a minute, do as many as you can. And I might have mentioned this prior, but for me, like that no longer sounds appealing.
Right.
Maybe possibly even like physically just harder to do. But it just doesn't sound appealing. I'm like, why would I be constantly jumping and hurting my joints, constantly doing so? At least like it's just so interesting how time and experience changes how you think about something. So prior to that, it was like my life crumbled, my world crumbled. How am I going to work out? And now I'm like, oh no, I couldn't do that. I could, I just would get injured and feel crappy.
Right.
So, but I feel like, again, people that don't know any better, that haven't had good quality training or that haven't really had a lot of injuries, you just go in there blindly and you're like, I'm just going to work out. And then you like don't know what you're doing. Oh, you're just kind of going with the flow. And I feel like that would be a hard spot to be in because you just don't know any better nor what you're doing right. But again, the same, like smaller settings or even just trying to seek for a good quality practitioner just to talk about form and in hopes that they know what they're doing.
Right.
Which is similar examples where I belong to some of the Chondromalacia Patella groups on Facebook just to aid in some of my experience for new people and how they're still getting treated with antiquated exercises. Like still to this day, they're like, oh, I'm doing like leg presses and with my PT, and I'm like, well, my PT said that those aren't a no forever. And it's, I obviously I don't have the power to change that, but what I can say is for the people that are out there experiencing the workout world, if you're getting really sore and something doesn't feel right and you're not sure about something, maybe that's a good opportunity to open up more knowledge.
Yeah, or expand out. Again, I think it's hard because like if I go to a workout class and they'll throw a thing out, and because I'm aware of like my own injuries and my things and my body for the most part, like I'll look at something and maybe I'll try it. But if I'm like, no, I'm okay telling someone like I'm not going to do that.
Correct.
Right. And I feel like normal people going to the gym are going to try to do what the person's telling them, or they're going to power through stuff, or they're not going to be like, hey, I need a modification. Because it sounds like you're being weak, right? Like I'm being weak. I can't. And there's probably like the peer pressure. And you don't want to look like the person causing drama. And I won't throw a scene. I'm just like, I'm going to do this, you know? So, because again, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to do something that my body says no. And also like, I know my body. So I'm like, ooh, or maybe again, it's not a picking on a particular instructor, but I'm like, I don't agree with that exercise. So I'm not going to do it. I'm going to blah for me because I understand the point of what we're doing. So I feel like the average person doesn't always realize they can do that.
Yeah, well, and to be fair, there's a lot of knowledgeable people out there, trainers, but also there's a lot of people that I've seen it where it's like, I just want to start teaching and I'm in great shape, so I'm just going to start teaching. Well, not because you're in great shape means you know how to teach form,
right?
Or know how to do form on your own.
Right.
So that is something too that I'm like,
Well, and even for me, that's why I will do privates where I have someone watching my form breaking and because I'm a nerd, like I love having my own kinesiology broken down and being
Yeah.
like, you were doing this and this is why this move didn't work for you. So like let's do blah. And I'm like, okay, cool, or because I can set up my phone and I'll still judge myself on the most part and I know what I'm looking for, but it is nice to also have that second set of eyes.
Yeah.
For me, like Tracy, slow down. Tracy, like your hip's doing this thing, like let's fix that. So I like to also have that for myself because again, not everyone has the privilege of all the one-on-one times, but it is like seek that stuff out that where you actually feel like someone's seeing you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? Or, again, and that's hard in big group fitness classes sometimes, again, even with the most intentioned teacher as you're trying to watch everybody.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying like give up on the things, but again,
Right.
like let's cover, like, I guess that's why I'm always like, learn good habits, proper form, listen to your body, like all these things that sound like basic common sense.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like there is so much to proper
Mhm.
form. I mean, it's like common sense to like mindfulness things, right? You know how to breathe. You don't have to
Mhm.
think about that. You know how to swallow.
Uh-huh.
You know how to like you don't have to think about that unless you're distracted. But when it comes to form, like that is like a
Mhm.
process. It's like, okay, what is the reason for this move?
Mhm.
What is my accomplishment? Am I trying to target this muscle, that muscle, because
Mhm.
those muscles are for this? So it's a very involved
Mhm.
and it's very complex. And if you don't even know that you have a body part,
Uh-huh.
even though you do, but
Right. And
you
you're
don't
like,
know
I
how to
have to
move it.
activate this, and
Yeah,
how
like
does
what
this
is
affect
yeah,
you?
it almost feels
Mhm.
like a ghost area where you're like, I don't even know how to control my core when I'm doing
Mhm.
things. So if you don't even know it exists because you don't feel it,
Mhm.
you're
Who knows?
like
Yeah, you're using other things. And then even you talk about breathing, when you start to do these forms, like a lot of times breathing goes out the window, right? And so
correct.
you've got to learn how to breathe with exercise too. So it's kind of interesting these things that we just do on a daily basis, making it intentional.
100%.
So,
Yeah.
um, any tips again? I feel like we've given lots of random tips and that again for me, I also feel like your episode was so popular just in the fact that like you broke it down really nicely. You went through an experience a lot of people do. You address the fact that it affected you psychologically, which I feel like with an injury, people just focus on the physical, but there's a huge mental component. So any other tips that you'd like to offer?
I think I mean having grace with yourself is one of the like biggest things and it sounds so cheesy, but it really is. It does make injury life a lot better where it's like obviously, somebody that can't like I tend to have more anxiety with things that when I don't know what's going to happen and I don't know where I'm going to be and however many days because I don't, it's hard to process for me, but it got to a point where I just was like, you know what, this is where I'm at. Like you just are realistic and you're like, this is where I'm at and let's make the best of it while I'm at here and how am I going to improve in the future. So like going through that process of like what was yesterday, it might not be today and might not be tomorrow and in the future to help you kind of just be at peace with things, but also prepare for like, not necessarily plan it, but just kind of be like, you know what, like whatever brings the future will do. And I think focusing on that really was helpful for me to, I mean, I think too, at some point in time, it was just so many injuries for me in a row that I was just like, you got me. Like, I'm done. Like, what else do you want me to do, universe? Um, so obviously at some point in time, it just kind of, I just took a step back and I'm like, I'm not gonna push it. I'm not gonna, and I talked about the pendulum thing too, where it's like I'm very one way or another. So unfortunately, it took me all the way opposite, and I'm still trying to find my way.
Right.
I feel like once my pain is completely gone after cleaning up all these crazy things form wise, then I will be more like, okay, now that I no longer have like the little, even if it's not significant thing, just that little whatever it is, then I'm gonna be like, okay, I'm ready to just get stronger, like and build up muscle and build a routine. So I feel like psychologically, it still has affected me
Mhm.
in a way, but that's okay. I mean, it is what it is.
Mhm.
So knowing that and understanding that and just changing my goals, changing how I viewed workout and exercise
Mhm.
has really also helped me to be like, not the end of the world. Like you can still be a healthy person and eat healthy and build healthy habits.
Mhm.
But just kind of going through the process without tormenting yourself
Mhm.
has helped. And I think my biggest thing for sure is to, once you understand where your weak spots are,
Uh-huh.
to keep that in the forefront and always make sure that you are kind of forever maintaining
Mhm.
those areas for not only to prevent future injuries if you're working out, but just again, as we age, we start losing
Mhm.
muscle, we start using musculoskeletal
Mhm.
function, and that's just part of the process too. Like,
Well, and for me, I always feel bad because I feel like I'm the person that's to break it down for people. Like you may not have to do 50 exercises, right, for the rest of your life, but you're probably gonna have to do at least these 5. So, for me, if I don't keep up with my self-care, if I don't do certain things for myself, you'll see me with like, oh, I didn't give the TLC that I needed to my arm. I didn't do the whatever for my neck. So I have to do these things. And I'm gonna have to do that the rest of my life. Does it suck sometimes? Yeah, but I'm aware of it. And so sometimes I feel like as a therapist, I have to break that down. But I like the opportunity of offering grace because I want to still be doing all this crazy shit when I'm like 60 something years
right.
old. Or, I have visions into my 80s and 90s because I've seen my dad. But like at the same time, I want I need to build the habits, right? So, but also have grace. There are days when my body's like, no. And we get really disappointed in ourselves. And it's hard not to like, and then you internalize and it becomes this whole circle of like all this stuff. But sometimes then your body gets those negative messages and that's when you become a cycle. So I think it's okay to be like, it's okay. That's
Yep.
always that phrase, it's okay to not be okay
Yeah.
sometimes. So I like the idea of like when there are areas where you call weakness, right? So for me, like you can rehab an injury and it'll be 99%, but there's still 1%. If something happens, it's going to go there. And to maintain that 99%, I have to keep it up.
Yeah, and like you said,
Mm.
self-care, I
Mhm.
mean, that obviously looks different for everybody. And
Yes.
it's not just all the, oh, relaxing, oh,
Mhm.
massage, oh, a glass of wine, or whatever it might be,
Mhm.
shopping. But self-care should,
Mhm.
especially after having injuries, it should
Mhm.
incorporate a maintenance body
Mhm.
check-in where it's
Yes.
like, okay, what am I feeling? What is it that
Mhm.
I need? Or let's not forget my glute strengthening or my
Right.
whatever strengthening.
Mhm.
Because that's just like you said, it just has become a part of your life
Yeah.
in order to prevent future
Mhm.
areas that you already damaged to get re-damaged.
And I think sometimes we also have to forgive not only ourselves, but also our body for getting hurt. So for me, I was always like frustrated, why can't I do these things? But um, once you can forgive that part of what happened, then you can finally embrace and be like, okay, this is who I am now. I have to use this little stick thing for my neck, and then I have to make sure I work on these stabilizers, and I have to keep this strength building here so that I'm still good to go.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I think a lot of times we get so angry at our bodies for
Mm-hmm.
not being able to
Function.
handle this injury and push through it like everything else. And sometimes the best gift we can have is forgiving our body for just being like we're just humans and we're doing the best we can.
Well, and also we put our bodies through so much. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even talking about working out. I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about the regular biological functions that our body
Mm-hmm.
does on a day to day.
Right.
The ADLs,
Uh-huh.
activities of daily living that we do that we don't always do right for what
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about.
Right.
And yet we're still putting our bodies through,
Yeah.
no, you can do it. It's fine.
We do the dishes, we do the laundry, we clean the bathrooms, we like pick up after things, we like, you know what I mean? All the house life.
Yeah. And then we have the stressors, right? Work
Mm-hmm.
stress, life stress, kid stress, all of it.
Uh-huh.
So again, you're like, okay, how much can your body tolerate before
Uh-huh.
they're like, I can't.
Right.
It's a lot. So
Yeah.
I will say, after going through like a spiritual change that
Mm-hmm.
I went through, plus injuries, it really just made me appreciate my body for
Mm-hmm.
everything they've done. I mean, I've brought 2 lives into this world. So that alone is like checking a lot of boxes. And the fact that I'm still like, I'm extremely grateful that I can do walking and all these things without pain compared to what I was before.
Right.
And when I reach those points of like, why is my body like this? You know, I just want to not have pain. I just have to be like, okay, body, what do you need? What do you need today?
Right. Work
Just
with
like
it.
talking to it, basically.
Instead of against it.
Yes.
So, and then I think sometimes if we actually do pay more attention to that, we in the long run are more successful.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a process, and I don't foresee this process ending anytime soon. I mean, I think I'm hopeful that in several years, then it'll be more good than the opposite. But again, life happens, and I'm not sure what life will bring down our way. But for now, for the moment, time being, for the now, this is kind of where we're at, and I'm obviously hopeful and excited that I will continue on a good path. And I think that's also good to remind yourselves that, like, again, doesn't define you what happened 5 years ago. And now that you have the knowledge and the awareness, hopefully you can utilize that to prevent and to take care of yourself, and just hope for the best.
Right. And again, we'll be here to deal with whatever life handles that as.
Yes.
Right?
And I do have to say too, like, it has, because of the injuries, it has made me a little bit more closed off from like experiencing more like sports such as like I never was a skier, but I do like to ski.
Right.
And the idea of skiing terrifies me now, because I'm like, not worth it. Like, it sounds great, it sounds fun, but it's not worth it. So I have to say, for myself, getting an injury has made me more of a, I'm gonna pass on that. Makes me feel old saying that and feeling that, but at the same time, I'm like, no sport, no anything is worth getting myself into a situation where I have to start from scratch.
Right.
And that's a choice I'm making, and I'm totally at peace with it.
Right.
Again, it makes me feel old, but I don't know.
Yeah. And for each person, you know, again, for right now, let's stay away from skiing. For your rehab journey, let's get some stuff rebuilt. We can always talk. But again, I like to say for people, most of the time, I want to get you back to exactly what you want to do, right? Sometimes we do have to have what I call the talk, right? We do have to be like, maybe this isn't realistic, but let's find another way to do blah, right?
Yeah.
So don't take it as a like, but I do appreciate people being like, maybe I evaluate before I do this because of what I've got going on. Or if you go into it knowing, you just may know like later you're gonna have to hang out with me more.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I definitely don't like, my experience is a very personal thing. I don't want to make people feel that because they have an injury they can't do the things that they can. It's just for myself where I was at.
Yeah.
I am just like, I don't care how, like, sometimes it's just not as
pain
important.
Isn't worth the other drama.
And it really just depends on like goal to goal, right? So if my goal was to be bodybuilding, of course I'd want to return to that. And I did want to return to like more full-time workouts.
Right.
And I just felt like that was at the time like not a possibility for me, because just stuff kept happening and coming up. So I'm like, all right, I'll take a break now. My goals still have changed from then. Now I don't personally have like an athletic goal where I'm like, I want to be here and I want to be here. I just want my body to feel good. I want to be strong in the areas that I need to be. And honestly, that's currently my goal, and I'm at peace with it.
Right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time again to tell us about your journey. Again, we'll see maybe where you're at in another year and a half with all the things. We're going to keep up all the therapy and annoying her with exercises and form and all that stuff. But yeah, thank you again for just kind of making the injury experience a little bit, I guess, relatable. And talking about that. And
I hope the episode helps people again, and you guys find value in it, that you're not alone. And not because you're not there right now, you know, maybe in the future you might come back and be like, oh, that was useful to know, or just to prevent, or anything really to just increase awareness.
Right. Build healthy habits now.
Yep. That's
basically, don't play Jenga with your body.
Play Jenga, but not with your body.
Yeah, valid. All right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you for tuning in for today's episode. As always, we hope that you found some nugget of information with all of the stories that these guests have to share. And always feel free to follow Better Fit Therapy online on all of the social medias, Facebooks and Instagrams and all the fun things. Feel free to message at any point as well if you have a condition or you have a topic that you would like to explore. Feel free to send that in. Also, if you would like access to any of the resources or things from a different episode, please always feel free to send in a message and we can direct you. And again, thank you for taking the time, and don't forget to fight for your healthcare.